Yeah.
Let's get to the folks that didn't make the list, the snubs, right? Those who may be crying into their pillows tonight saying, hey, how come I didn't make this very valuable countdown of CONCACAF's top 10 players? Herc, who is your honorable mention /snub?
Let your mans explain himself right here. Miles Robinson. I'm going to get a lot of what? I thought to myself, Miles Robinson's been a hell of a defender lately, a very good defender. If you look at the body of work since he's been with the men's national team, very good defender. Okay, I want to put him in the top 10. And then I started thinking, like, well, at the expense of who? And I'm like, I can't put this man's in the top 10. I can't theoretically, realistically, honestly put him in the top 10, but he's been so good for the U.S. men's national team. He's been such a good defender in CONCACAF at this region of the octagonal. I had to give him honorable mention.
I mean, a top 10 list is always going to be like attacking player heavy.
Right.
But we don't have a lot of defenders on this list. Fair enough. Miles Robinson, is he the best center back in the region? Because we don't have a center back on this list. So if you're telling me he's your honorable mention, he's your snub, you're kind of saying Miles Robinson is the best center back in CONCACAF. You sticking with that?
It's a fair shout. I'm trying to think of other names right now, and I go to the Mexican national team, and Carlos Salcedo, very good, center back, no longer part of the program, at least until he comes back, even though he's told us he's had those conversations. I look at the other players. Nestor Araujo has not been playing well. Maybe a Cesar Montes, but his body of work isn't like Miles at the national team level right now. When you look at the performances of Miles Robinson with the U.S. men's national team over this calendar year, you can make a very strong argument that he is the best defender in the octagonal.
Speaking of defenders that did not make the list, Herc's honorable mention, Miles Robinson. My honorable mention, none other than Sergiño Dest. Herc, how did Sergiño Dest not make this list? You didn't put him in, did you? Before we get to my explanation, I want to hear yours.
No, I did not put him in, and it's very simple. Have you seen him play lately? When you're a left back, right back, when you're on the defensive line, it's very important that you learn how to defend properly, whether it's tactically or whether it's 1v1, physically, whatever you may want to do. And if it's not going to be there and you're going to play as a winger, as he did for Barcelona, it's imperative that you learn how to attack properly. And he's had his occasions where he should have defined the game. He should have put it to bed. He did not. It's been a very up and down year for Sergiño Dest. He's still trying to learn that position, but I look at the players, the names on this list, I just don't think he was there. He wasn't anywhere near the stratosphere.
I tried to get him in, right? But obviously I couldn't. I couldn't find, a player to replace in my top 10. I feel like if things were going better at Barcelona, we'd have a very different look and appreciation of Sergiño Dest. This is, as we've said 100 million times on this show, this is not, your grandfathers or your fathers or your slightly older uncles' Barcelona. It's a different Barcelona. We have to talk about their players on a different level. But it's crazy to me, Herc, that we would have a player from CONCACAF who's not a guaranteed starter, but a pretty consistent starter, at least under Koeman, for a club like Barcelona, and they wouldn't get to the top 10. That tells me that the depth of talent in this region is much more than it was just a few short years ago.
Times change, talent changes. Look at Tecatito Corona. I go to Sergiño Dest and I look at Tecatito Corona. I'm like, where would he have been on this list 8-10 months ago?
Yep. So Sergiño Dest then makes my honorable mention. Miles Robinson makes your honorable mention. But there's one name, Herc, who is a true snub on this list. Now, I believe you had Gio Reyna at 10th on your list, which means if he didn't make this list, it's because somebody, left him off. So let's do the same thing we just did before I explain my logic or what's left of it. Why don't you explain why Gio Reyna, who you have constantly said is the highest ceiling of any player in the U.S. men's national team pool, higher than, yes, even Christian Pulisic, how come you only had him at 10?
Because he's been injured. 92 days injured, right? You got to factor that in. It's how durable you can be, and he's only played one game of World Cup qualifying, so that's a huge factor in the national team. And then I look at Dortmund, his ceiling is so high. Cristiano Ronaldo voted him third in his Golden Boy voting. Gio Reyna is a talent. Gio Reyna has a huge ceiling. I have no doubt in my mind that if he stays healthy, he can be a higher transfer value than Christian Pulisic. He's a young player. Every time he's on the field, he's determined. He makes himself known. I've got no issues putting him at number 10. He's the youngest. He's the best and youngest talent in CONCACAF. Highest ceiling of any player I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fitness is a huge one for me. Maybe I'm being a little bit, to borrow the term again, prisoner of the moment. We just haven't seen of Giovanni Reyna. But even beyond that, Herc, I feel like when we talk about his career, it still is mostly potential, mostly what could be. All the other players on this list have a track record of being, a consistent player, a consistent starter. He's not been that yet with Dortmund. Maybe injuries are the reason why. But last year he was not a the guy for Dortmund.
Seb, correct me if I'm
This year
wrong.
was supposed to be the year that he was supposed to be the guy.
Can you name the player in Bundesliga who got to 50 goals fastest in Bundesliga history? I'm sorry, 50 games fastest in Bundesliga history.
Gio Reyna.
And you're telling me he's not proven. Come on, man.
No, I'm not telling you that he's not a proven talent. I'm just saying there's not the body of work consistently, like year after year. He gets 30 games in the top flight, delivers 10 goals and 5 assists. We have not seen that yet. I'm waiting on that. I believe it'll happen, just like you believe it'll happen. But we haven't seen it yet, Herc. He hasn't. I mean, he's still a kid. He's still a teenager. This is not a guy who's been handed the reins to a team.
No, he's not been handed the reins to a team. But a lot of that may be due to fitness concerns. Maybe this was his year, and because of those injuries, he's not had that opportunity. But there's certainly a body of work to say this is a top 10 prospect, top 10 player in the region.
All right, so you've got him 10. I have him also receiving votes. We'll put it that way for now for Gio Reyna.